what ADOS is supposed to be, is supposed to mean, and specifically for the chapters, because there was a certain little kerfuffle. There was a kerfuffle on Twitter last night, and the person who had the kerfuffle pledged their allegiance to FBA and then got clowned by FBA. So it was quite a kerfuffle. I think you kerfuffled off a cliff, but you kerfuffled. But we'll get to that later. The first part of the show, I just want you to, we're just going to talk about Cory Booker, and we're going to talk about Kamala Harris, and we're going to talk about Cory Booker deciding, well, he didn't decide, the people decided for him, that he is no longer in the race for the presidency. He decided with a full heart, I share this news. I'm suspending my campaign for presidency to my team and supporters and everyone who gave me their support. He's proud. He thanks them, all that good stuff. And I think one of the things that we have to talk about in this conversation, and we have to work our way through, because you can't really talk about, even though Cory Booker was ADOS, you can't really talk about Cory Booker without talking about Kamala Harris, because they both misunderstood the moment, and they both misunderstood what it means to be ADOS in this moment and how to advocate for ADOS. And I don't even think we understand that, not even just the role we played in that, I don't think we understand as a group that, yeah, everybody's talking about, well, it's not a diverse field and da 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 da. That's not necessarily a bad thing in this way. What it showed in terms of who we came out for, what that showed the rest of America is that we're not going to do this symbolism thing anymore. What do you mean, Yvette? Well, I don't know what else you could call, because we got to go all the way back, the Obama years. Henry Louis Gates got dragged out of his house with his cane. He came outside. The police officer said, "Come outside." What was it, Boston near Harvard? He said, "Come outside," and he dragged him to the police station. Now, Obama said the right thing at first, and then he said, the police officer acted stupidly. Then whatever he said, and he took it back. And then he invited the police officer and Gates, and there was just a bunch of mischief. Invited them to the White House to have a drink, as if that was a beer summit, as if that was what it was about. So that's what we bought. But understand, in terms of politics, is purchase, and that's what we bought in 2008. What we said this time is we're not buying that anymore. That's a shell game. We don't want to buy something, get home, and realize that there's nothing there. We don't want any more beer summits. We don't want anybody anymore. We don't want any more beer summits. Now, I want to point something out to you. We don't like these beer summits, but I want to show something to you really quick. Joe Biden's at that beer summit table, too. It's not just Obama. It's not just Gates. It's not just the cop who dragged old crippled old man out the house. Biden is sitting there, too. I don't know why we don't make Biden answer for what he has to answer for. You were sitting at that table with a cop who had done some wrong stuff. That's what you've always done, no, Joe. That's why I don't even understand why you're leading. Please understand that what I'm saying right now isn't supportive of the two front runners. I'm not supporting them at all. I'm certainly not supporting Joe Biden. I'm not supporting Bernie. I'm not supporting them at all. Down ticket, leave it. They ain't came for nothing for us. So you got to leave that blank. But he was there. He was co-signing. But he gets the name recognition of the first black president, but not all of Obama's failures. And we know what Obama's failures were. We've talked about them a lot. See, when you talk about Kamala, when you talk about Cory Booker, and when you look at the fact that these two people who were thought to be the Obama 2.0 remix, when you look at the fact that they're not in the race anymore, it's not a negative thing in terms of us. We have kind of turned a corner as a group, and we have decided, you know what? We're not just doing this thing anymore where we vote based on the symbolism of the black this or the black that. That's not what we're doing anymore. We're not doing that. We have changed our minds. It didn't work last time, and when something doesn't work, you gotta what? You gotta leave it alone. Didn't work. Not my fault. Didn't work out. I'm gonna let that go. Didn't work out for me and mine. Letting it go. So I think you can't think of this as a negative thing. I think part of what ADOS has done is kind of turn a corner in terms of what we look to. So normally what is happening, and this is how Cory Booker felt specifically. Kamala felt a different kind of way, but it's similar. There's a thread that connects the two. Cory Booker felt because if you all remember the show I did about Cory Booker, and you can go back, if you weren't watching it, you can go back and look at it. Cory Booker actually benefited. His family had to like file a lawsuit or something for the neighborhood, the state, something like that. He benefited, and he came in like his parents were professionals. He benefited from being able to file that lawsuit, and I think the NAACP came to his aid or whatever. He benefited from policies for ADOS. And I understand he supported HR 40, but he didn't do that until he was in a campaign. Him and Kamala submitted it, whatever. That's great. But you benefited from the policies to benefit ADOS, but you didn't full-throatedly push those policies as an ADOS candidate. See, understand, your responsibility, if you benefited from these kinds of policies for ADOS, your responsibility when you become close to power or when you do something or when you run for office is to push those policies in favor of ADOS. And that's what we're looking for now. We're looking for now policy prescriptions to solve our problems, which at the center of it is the racial wealth gap. That's what we're looking for. And you can't come out talking about love and our campaign is love and love solves everything and we got to come together. You can't do it. Well, then some people will say this. Well, Yvette, he can't do that. If he does that, he's going to lose. If he does that, he's not going to be able to win the white vote. Well, then we don't have black candidates then because America hasn't done what is necessary in terms of our group to give us a black president. I would submit to you that we've never had a black president in terms of what blackness means in this country in terms of systemic oppression, multi-generational oppression. It's black is not flat. It means something different in different places. I would submit to you that we've never had one and we're not going to have one. The only thing we will have are imposters. What good is an ADOS president if the president can't be ADOS? What good is an ADOS president if the president cannot advocate policies full-throatedly that benefit ADOS? What good are you in that space if you have to navigate around us and whisper about us and not talk about us? I'm going to try to help you a little bit as if we're not full citizens because they bottom casted us. America hasn't done the work to elevate us to the point to where we need to be elevated to have our own president. And if that's the case, I just need everybody to be real about it. If that's the case and America hasn't done the work, that's okay. That's what I know. Let's just be honest about not having done the work. Don't try to give me something and tell me something was for me when I know it wasn't for me. I know what I'm looking at. I'm not crazy. So you had Booker and Kamala who were not. Kamala came out and what she said, let me see if I can find this clip. Everybody coming out and saying wild stuff. She said, and Booker came out and talked about how we're the same country. I posted about it on Instagram when it came out. We're the same country and we don't, he tried to do that Obama remix. There's not a blue America or a red America, it's one America. Shut up, Obama. I think when Trump got elected, he showed you that there's a blue and there's red. Right? So in so many ways, Booker just misread the moment anyway. This is not a moment for yoga. People were looking for the first yoga president. People were not looking for the first Buddha president. People were looking for the first president who's going to fight. And we were looking for who's going to specifically address our material needs. Let me tell you something, ADOS. Let me tell you something, family. I don't care who it is. I do not care who it is. If somebody starts talking mess, I need you to, and I put this in the other section, but I'm on in terms of chapters. But in terms of your mindset, if somebody starts talking and you realize whatever they're talking about does not improve the material conditions. Now that is your economic positionality, right? Of you and your group, because we don't do individual agency here where you get rich and run off. We're talking about group uplift, collective uplift. If somebody starts talking about something, ask yourself, the first question you ask yourself, how does this improve uplift? How does this, what they're talking about, uplift me and my group? If somebody is talking about something, I don't care whether it's a joke or whether it's a policy or whether it doesn't matter to me. But you have to ask yourself as you assess what they're saying. If they say, well, ADOS, assess, okay, what is the thing that you're offering? Does the thing that you're offering improve the material conditions of my group? Are we economically uplifted? If not, you have to understand that you're being finessed. You can be finessed by people. You can be finessed by politicians. You can be finessed by a lot of people. But that's just what it is. And numbers matter. That's what matters. So we have to understand these things. We have to understand that we're not going to allow candidates anymore to come into these campaigns and instead of doing what is necessary for ADOS in terms of improving our lives, what they're doing is this. They're using us as a doorway to an office. We will not be used anymore as a doorway to your personal ambitions. You want to be president? I don't care. You want to be senator? I don't care. You want to be dog catcher? I don't care. The question becomes, okay, you want to do that? Voting is an exchange. So I will give you your aspiration, whatever you aspire to. People have a lot of aspiration. In exchange for policy that benefits ADOS. That's the exchange. It's not complicated. And if you don't, I will let you fail. I will let you fail. That's what Democratic down ballot is about. If you all don't come through, you got time, but if you don't come through with some kind of ADOS agenda, a black agenda with a reparations as a heartbeat, if you don't come through with some kind of plan, I will let you fail. And don't try to scare me with all this, we got to get Trump. I will let you fail because that's what teaches you. That's how you learn. That's how politicians learn. That's how they adjust. We will let you not have the White House. Understand that, like the seat that Booker has, Cory Booker, he wanted like a million votes. That's like a congressional seat. Kamala got like 7 million. Understand, he wasn't ready for this kind of campaign with Jersey and all that. He wasn't ready. I don't know if Booker will be ready. Right? Kamala had a whole different thing. She came in and she wanted to access blackness in the terms of ADOSness and that struggle with two professional immigrant parents. And it's not nothing wrong with immigrants. It's just these are different. These are two different things. These are two different groups with a different struggle. You want to access that when you needed it, but when people asked you who you were, you said that you were an American. You were a proud American. That's how you described yourself. Right? And so what we're looking at is how ADOS rejected this. Because we've kind of come to understand what this is supposed to look like. We've kind of come to understand, okay, what politics is supposed to be for us. It's supposed to be an exchange. That's what it is. I'm sorry if people don't understand that and people don't get that, but we're talking about an exchange. Here it is. Kamala Harris sees herself as a proud American. But you announced from Howard University on MLK Day. See, what we won't do, what we not gonna do no more, we not gonna be just a candidate for you to have a big black turnout. So you want to have, oh, I'm gonna get the black turnout. I'm gonna get the black turnout. Kamala's gonna get the black turnout. Cory Booker's gonna get the black turnout and get the black support just because they black. No, we're not doing that no more. We look for specific policies now. And that's the last thing anybody wanted. Nobody wanted ADOS to start looking for serious policies. Nobody wanted Black America to start looking for serious policies. Oh my God. What are we going to do? Because we don't never give them nothing. We just treat them like a captured vote. We don't give them nothing. What are we going to do if they start looking for stuff and wanting them to exchange? How are we going to do that? Oh, God, help us. Okay, yeah. And what you want from me? That's what politics has always been. I don't know how we got confused. Wanting the first everything. Well, people are going to flock to her because she might be the first black woman president. People are going to... No, we're not. Now, we got a whole other issue with all these people supporting Biden and all that stuff. But today, we're going to talk about how this is not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. Oh, it's not a diverse race anymore. They're going, no, that's not a bad thing. We don't need diversity for the sake of diversity. We need policies that benefit ADOS. We don't need just a diverse so that we can feel... Listen, we got enough family pictures with Obama. We got all that. We got all the family pictures. Malia and Sasha. We finished. We don't need that no more. We don't want that no more. We good. We don't, and we don't need the same people to be in the room who were in the room before. We don't need that no more. We good. Then nothing, all these pictures and stuff we saw, nothing came of them. Right? And then we got a bunch of black candidates who can't be black. Well, you can't, you can't make nobody mad. Don't make them upset. People came in the room. We're going to negotiate a black agenda with Obama and walked out in the snow without a hat. So what you see is, even though it's not perfect, things are changing. We're changing how we assess politicians, and that's a good thing. There's nothing to be ashamed of here. We just have to discuss how we move forward, and we're going to do that. But there's nothing wrong with anything that happened. All these people deserve to lose. You didn't. Kamala came out and said she wasn't going to do anything specific for black people. You deserve to lose, and you lost. Nobody should feel any kind of way about that. Why would you? It doesn't make much sense to feel any kind of way about these people losing. Obama opposed reparations, and we let him stay in there. Don't make no sense. It don't make no sense. We let that man stay in here, oppose reparations. Well, I tell you, people might get mad. We changed. And the change is good. We looked at these people and we said, no. No. We keep asking you for something specific, and you keep telling me about how we got to love each other, and you keep telling me that you're not going to do, no, we're not going to do it, and that's okay. You have to count your wins sometimes, and you have to see stuff that is a win that you might not have necessarily seen as a win prior to. That's a win. Because what it means is that the next candidates who come and who are black or ADOS, whichever one they are, they're going to say, you know what, I can't do that no more. That didn't work. They tried to Obama 2.0 and it didn't work. I got to figure something out. I got to figure out a policy. I got to figure out an agenda. Because that stuff, well, I'm just black, and so you just assume that I'm going to do something for you. Obama nixed that. That's over with. We finished. Well, he going to do something for us. He going to hook us up in the second term. Yvette, you just don't understand. He really going to hook us up. He going to do it. Shh. Never happened. And it was fun clowning y'all who believed it, but after that, we still don't get policy. It's not going to happen. And Booker came from Jersey. They got a water quality crisis in New Jersey. Is bringing like fresh attention to the scrutiny of Booker's own record when he was the city's mayor at the time. The two crises may be separated by time, but as images spread of Newark officials handing out bottled water to residents grappling with dangerous water pollution, ongoing water pollution could prove increasingly uncomfortable for his 2020 presidential campaign. Listen, he shouldn't even have been there. You got a water crisis. You did some stuff wrong. You shouldn't even have been there. We are not the doorway. Listen, Black America, when I say that, I mean ADOS. We are no longer the doorway to your personal ambitions. That's not who we are. No, we are not the doorway or the doormat that you use to get to your personal ambition. That's not who we are. That's not what we do. So if you're confused, let us clear that up for you. That's not who we are. That's not what we do. That's not our job. Never was our job. I don't know why anybody tried to make it our job. That's not what we're a group just like any other group. We have policy demands to close the racial wealth gap just like any other group. And we have a Black agenda that's inclusive of other things. But the heart of it is that. And that brings me, to my next kind of, after Kamala and Booker done fell off, it brings me to my next part of the conversation. It is my hope that these people come around and that they understand there are some places where there have been elections and the number of Black turnout has not been good. So it is my hope that they come around and say, no, you know what? We have to respond to ADOS. We have to give them a specific agenda. But the question becomes, if they don't, what do we do? And I thought this would be a good time to have a conversation about moving forward and leadership. Leadership. People, oh, we don't need no leaders. Hush. Just hush. The military has leaders for a reason. Platoon commander, company commander, battalion commander. You have a structure. Stop being a mess. What you want, though, is many, many leaders. And I said this before, many leaders. You need a number of leaders. You don't just need Yvette or Antonio. You need a number of leaders across America. You need ADOS leaders in a lot of different places. And those leaders need to build up other leaders. But I have a few pointers, and this is not no hard and fast rule or nothing like that. But I've just seen a lot of kerfuffle in the last few days. I've seen people. Let me get this off the screen while we go to this. Who want to do really big things and have really big ambitions. And understand something. I'm not opposed to ambitions. I'm not opposed to any of that. I'm not opposed to anybody running for office or doing something big or what. I am not opposed. But one of the things that has to happen, if you tell me, Yvette, I want to run a marathon, and politics is a marathon. I've used that kind of analogy before. If you want to run a marathon and you can't run 3 miles, me and you gonna have a problem. Because everything that you need to do, politics is no different than life. Everything that you need to do is in the process. So I'm going to ask about your process. If you want to tell me I want to do some big thing, I want to know about your process. If you want to tell me I want to run a marathon, I want to know, how often are you running? What is your diet like? Don't just tell me you want to do some stuff because you want to get in front of a camera and you want to get attention. You want to show up for the marathon so people can interview everybody who's there for the marathon. Well, you're here for the marathon. How are you doing? And they interview you and you make it to mile 2. A marathon takes work. Consistent work. And as we talk about chapters and everything we do going forward, we have to talk about people who want to go from A to Z and haven't done any of the alphabet in between. That's not what this is. This has always been a marathon. And to run a marathon, you got to get up every day and run. Now, running could be reading books, reading articles. We're going to discuss what running looks like. But you got to get up every day and run. You can't tell me I slept in. You can't tell me 6 months later, well, I'm at mile 4. That's as far as I can go. I can't go no farther than mile 4. Well, what you gonna run a marathon for? Do you know how long a marathon is? I'm still gonna run it. No, that's in your mind. You haven't trained for a marathon. If you haven't trained for a marathon, don't show up for a marathon. You got to be getting up and running every day, or whatever your regimen is. It might be every other day. You got to eat for it too. You got to know how many carbs, how much energy you need for how long you running. You got to have equipment for it. What kind of shoes do you need? What you going to be running at? You going to be running on the street? You going to be running on all? Are you going to be running in the woods? What you going to be on a trail? What you going to be doing? See, there's a lot of people who are talking about doing big things in ADOS who haven't even. Do you have bylaws in your chapter? Let's talk about some of the stuff we're going to need. Because we haven't had self-interested advocacy for a long time. So when you talk about your chapters, do you even have bylaws? Do you have a process for excluding someone who may be an agent provocateur? People say, no, Yvette, it's just a lineage. We don't have it's a lineage. Yeah, but this lineage has always been anchored in politics to redress the harms done. If you have somebody in your group that is causing problems, what is the process? How is that written up in your chapter? Do you have a process for ousting somebody? Because that happened, what was it, like Black Lives Matter? Somebody was acting up and got violent and stuff like that, and they had to go to court and get rid of them. Do you have something do you vote? Is it majority rule? Is it 2/3 rule? How do you deal with agents of chaos? How do you deal with agents provocateurs? Y'all could be somewhere doing something and somebody just throw a table. Now, how do you make sure that person's gone? Do they just show back up at your group and say, well, this is a lineage. This is a lineage. You can't make me go away. What are the rules? Doing a lot of stuff and you haven't even decided on what the rules are? What are the rules for exclusion? Anybody who tells you we're just a lineage is a twit. That's just a rebrand. No, what are you going to do to improve the material conditions of ADOS? That's why we're here. We're not here the reason we decided who we are, in part at least, was so we could measure the cost from slavery to Jim Crow and redlining, Reconstruction, mass incarceration. Measure that cost, put a price tag on it, and decide what policies fill that gap. That's part of the whole thing we're doing here. If you're not doing that, I don't even know what you're doing. I don't know how you consider yourself standing up for ADOS people if you're just talking trash. We are not here for the rebrand. We're here for the transformational politics. And you can't tell me, Yvette, I'm going to run a marathon, and then come to me and say, well, Yvette, can I run the first half and you run the second half? Huh? No, I run almost every day. You run your marathon. You got to train yourself. I'm going to train myself, and we're going to come together as two trained people and run. We can run side by side, but I can't run for you. I'm just trying to understand. Because a lot of people been trying to jump from not doing nothing to running a marathon. Or doing a little bit and running a marathon. Right? And then you end up, the person that you gave your loyalty to just clowned you. Because you shouldn't have done it that way. If you can't run a marathon, don't run a marathon. Keep training. The process is what matters. That's the way of everything. It's all about the process. You have a goal of doing X, that's great, but stay in the process. And let's talk about a little bit more about what the process looks like. You know? Let's talk about what the process looks like. We got to. Not just crawling before you walk, that's part of it. But like, you have to have other rules as well. Why do you go into, and I've seen this happen like 3 times so far. Listen, if you are, there are ADOS chapters all over America now. If you go into another chapter, state or whatever to do something, check in. They might have something that they're doing. Communicate. Is there a directory of phone numbers where we can communicate? Because we're doing stuff nationwide. Is there some kind of directory? Are we communicating? You can't ever come into somebody else's turf. Right? They might have something planned. So something happened. This happened like 2 months ago. So something happens. There's going to be an event. Now, the ADOS chapter that's there is going to be at that event. And then you going to come to that event too. But y'all got 2 totally different plans about how y'all going to deal with that event. No. You got to coordinate. You got to work together. This is a space for collective uplift, not for individual ambition. If that was the case, me and Antonio would be doing every interview thing we got. We do a lot of interviews. We don't do every and each one. You know why? This is not a space for that. This is not a space to do everything just to get attention. If it's going to be beneficial, if we think it can help, if we think the person who's asking the questions is being fair-minded and acting in good faith, then okay. But you can't do everything just because you want some kind of microphone or some kind of shine. I don't even know where you think that's going to lead to. It's a lot of egos. You have to drown your ego in a bathtub. Just take it in there and kill it. That's the only way. That's the only way. So, you know, I put up an article a while ago which talked about how I think it was like in UK there's this climate change group or whatever, and how they have like little butterfly groups that go to other different little ADOS groups and they work where needed. There's a whole lot that we can do and we can learn. Have we read any books? And maybe that's the next book club book after this one. Have you read any books on activism? You want to run out and do stuff. Have you really engaged? Have you talked to activists in your area, maybe who have been doing this before you? Everybody want to run off. This is a marathon. It's not a sprint. Stop sprinting. You're going to pull your hamstring. Quad gonna be jacked up. Stop. Do the work methodically. Learn from whatever mistakes you make. Journal. Figure it out. But stop just getting out here trying to get in front of cameras. The work is the work. And I understand that it's often, the process is always tedious. Ain't it? Like you see somebody run a marathon, you don't even realize how many years they train. You see somebody run, like you see somebody with, you know, with like who isn't on steroids or something, but with a lot of muscles or whatever. You don't realize how many days when you were in the bed that they were downstairs, you know, doing or upstairs or at the gym or whatever they were doing, you know, lifting weights or whatever. You don't like, yeah, you like it, but you gotta like the process. Discipline is freedom, right? So how disciplined are you? in terms of your reading, in terms of your knowledge, in terms of dealing with people and trying to be sympathetic and kind. How disciplined are you in your interactions? Or do you pop off real quick and start calling people names when they get on your nerves? Or do you make a mess on the internet? Or do you make a mess on Twitter? Or are you just a messy person who the minute somebody pisses you off, you want to share a whole bunch of stuff that you shouldn't be sharing? That's not a disciplined person. You a messy mess. You're going to have problems with people who just tell everything that's been said. And people are like, well, Yvette, you put boy screenshots out after years of hearing that lie. He been lying since 2017. So yeah, in 2019, I finally said, okay, enough. But some of y'all get pissed off and have one interaction. See one retweet. Oh, I tell you, I'm going to just put out, I don't care what kind of private information, I'm going to just put it out. No, we can't move forward with that. Can't do it. If you run with another camp, I don't even care what kind of camp it is. Go build. Stop adding me. Stop talking to me. I don't want to talk. Like, just go build. Go build that. Go do that. Go help with whatever anybody else got going on. If that's what you want to do. You don't have to. Listen, I would rather have a bunch of strong soldiers. Like, I would rather have like 10,000 strong soldiers than like 1 million weaklings. So, it is what it is. That's fine. We'll make new ones. We'll build new. We'll grow. But you got to think about this in terms of your chapter. Do you have it? Do you have a curriculum for your chapter when new people come? It don't got to be written down in paper or printed necessarily. But do you have, maybe links to my show or stuff you took from the show? Like all of the links to data or whatever to help people understand. Do you have a curriculum for your chapter? Before you go and do whatever you're going to do, before you go do whatever big thing you think about doing, do you have a curriculum? No? Okay. I don't understand it then. What are we doing? Do you have local goals? Because do you have local goals? Now understand something in terms of how I feel. Listen, we accept everybody in terms of ADOS. If you're ADOS, we accept you here. I don't care what you are in terms of whether you're disabled or your background. I don't care about that. But we're not anchored in anybody's subgroup. We're anchored in the racial wealth gap. And how that extends from slavery. That is the anchoring. We're anchored in that specific data. Do you make that clear to everybody who comes? That doesn't mean if somebody's working on housing for ADOS that you can't do it. But do you have as your chapter, because your local chapter is your local chapter, do you have a policy on that? Do you have a specific outlook on that? How is it articulated within your chapter? I'm just trying to understand, that's all. Do you have, we do a reading group at ADOS, but there are good books, a lot of the times, that have to do with your specific state or region. Have you considered, you can do it once every 2-3 months, having a book that's specific to politics of your region? Have you considered that? See, there's a lot of stuff that has to go into the chapter meetings instead of people with combat boots on, coming on or whatever, trying to figure stuff out and talking loud and hollering. The work is the work. The work is the work. And everybody in every different city and state and municipality has to figure out how best to do the work. We're not people who helicopter people. When people email me and stuff, I respond to it as best I can because I get a lot of emails. But I would never helicopter in. I will help you as best I can. I'm support. But I would never helicopter in like a lot of people do in these movements and try to have some kind of messiah thing. I don't do that. Because the whole thing is to build leaders up. Not to just have all the stuff coming to Yvette and Antonio. I want you to, because if we build up a bunch of leaders, then what happens? You can't just chop a person off. Nah, we got a bunch of leaders. It don't matter. Somebody's going to slide into place. It is what it is. We're anchored in data. You have to also make sure that people understand when they come in, so that, because, you know, all kinds of movement attract agent provocateurs, that you are explicitly nonviolent. Right? That's how a lot of movements get undone. Somebody come in and pop off and they say this group is this group. Is that in your information? You have to make sure the people around you are not unnecessarily disruptive. Every time somebody say something, he jump up. I tell you what, I ain't gonna deal with this. I dealt with this in Black Lives Matter. I ain't gonna deal with this no more. I'll leave. Every time something happens, you jump up. Well, why don't you jump your butt out of here? ADOS is nonviolent. Somebody said, who's nonviolent? ADOS is. What are your tactics for influencing people? Have you discussed this at a chapter meeting? How do we best influence people going forward? How do we best engage people? What works versus what doesn't work? Before you want to go do all this big stuff, what works versus what doesn't work? Have you tried out different ways of influencing people and talked about what works? You know, we talk to Marlon, we talk and Chris a lot in our monthly calls, and it's just like, you know, what works? I think I remember when this began, everybody said, well, what's the solution? And nobody really understood, well, few people really understood that the education is the bedrock of any solution. But it's almost as if we have this thing where we just want to run out and do action. I want to run outside right now and just do something. I don't care what it is. I need to do something. And that's how we needed to vote for Obama, but we didn't realize that, like, a seat at the table is not food on a plate. We realized it with Kamala and Booker, but we didn't realize it then. So a seat at the table is not food on the plate, and doing something just to get attention is not a policy demand. It's not moving the needle. And you know, the last two things I will say is that, first of all, and I've said this before, but just, you have to keep this in the forefront of your mind. Don't be ashamed of whatever circumstance that you are in. Because your circumstance, that circumstance is built out of, like, slavery and accrued disadvantage. That is the doorway to good politics. That life experience, trust that experience. That experience is the doorway to good politics. And the last thing I will say is this. Nobody has a right to an uninformed opinion. Nobody. In the chapter or here, nobody has a right to an uninformed opinion. You can have an opinion, but if it's not anchored in data and information, you have no right to it. And so, as we go forward, I want people to kind of pull back just a little bit and think about what they need to do for their specific chapters, how they need to move, what everybody needs to write, what everybody needs to understand, what direction. And let me just say that the chapters will be different based on demographics, based on who's the people who are leading the chapter. Some people may have rotating leaders. Some people may have elect leaders that stay there, and they will. This is what you get to create in this moment. You get to create a kind of politics that fits the demographics for where you live. That's a good thing. Lean into that, but lean into the process. This is not just a vehicle for individual aspiration, although I'm sure we will have, and we've already had some people who run for small office or whatever. I understand that will happen, absolutely. But it's not just that. There's a whole process here. So, fam, it's about that time